I just finished watching Crown Chasers episode 2 as well as Miss Supranational back to back, guys, and it's like 1 in the morning, but here I am. Because I'll be damned if I found out who was eliminated through Instagram instead of finding it out the hard way, which is watching an entire episode. So the theme for this episode of Crown Chasers was proudly South African, which is a term that I feel like all South Africans are very used to. It's on our products. Proudly South African. You know, it's just such a powerful term in South Africa. And this was the theme of today's episode. Nothing screams Miss South Africa more than cooking, food. And this episode started off with a cultural cooking challenge, and funnily enough, this was a team challenge, so all of the girls were split into different teams, color-coded according to the South African flag, and they all had to cook dishes according to their heritages. Now the problem is, this is South Africa. Literally everyone there have a different pedigree. And so the dishes ended up being like mishmashes of staples from everyone's culture. And you know what, at the same time, that is a beautiful thing. I would love to eat that food. I actually got low-key hungry watching this. I'm still not exactly sure how they chose the team leaders. Like, where did those come from? Because at the end of the day, the team leaders actually had a big impact on the challenge itself, because it was the team leaders who had to go and eat the food and decide who won. Reinette actually was one of the team leaders. She refused to eat tripe, which I have learned is actually offal, which, you know what? I'm not a fan of offal as well. So I wouldn't eat someone's random offal. I would eat offal from somebody's grandmother who's been making offal since like the 80s or the 70s. I'm not eating some random 20-something-year-old's offal that they made that day. So no thank you. We all know offal is best the next day. But I must say one thing about South African women. We can cook. We can cook. There is no cooking class. The class was, since birth, you had to help in the kitchen. That's the class. And I love how everyone becomes a great speaker when it comes to food. Like, there was no woman offbeat talking while she was talking about what she was cooking. Now, at the end of the day, it was the green team who won, and they would get an advantage in a later challenge. Now, obviously, with the photo shoot for this episode, which there is always a photo shoot, the theme was still proudly South African, and the girls came out in this lovely, colorful makeup. And you know what I actually loved about this shoot scene in particular is that both Werner and the actual photographer gave critique, and they called out the girls by name, but they were giving their honest, like raw, sometimes borderline hurtful opinions. And you know what? I appreciate it. Yes, I appreciate it. Give us your honest thoughts. Give us like a little bit of a rundown of what's going on in your head, who's doing well. You know, it gives us a little bit of leeway to think about who's doing well. Not that we have any say, but it's nice to feel included in people's thoughts, even the negative ones. You know, to hear his criticism of the girls is refreshing, because we know Werner loves the Miss SA girlies. We know he lives for this. This is like his love letter to women, is doing Miss SA work. But that doesn't mean that criticism cannot be given and be given freely. And so I love that we're getting their raw and honest views on how these women are actually doing. But they didn't only critique, they also gave 10s where 10s were due. So it was sort of a balance that they struck. And I love that we're getting sort of a progress report from Werner and the photographer. The girls obviously did a Talk Your Worth segment, which is meant, I suppose, to get us to get to know the girls better. But honestly, throughout this Talk Your Worth, you know, it started off with being about heritage, and I actually started for a moment to see a vision of how Talk Your Worth can be very helpful, productive, enlightening if the women are prompted with the correct question. Ona's thoughts on men is, however, becoming a little bit alarming to me.
I hate being compared to a man. We cannot compare me to a being that I birthed.
In the top 30 judging day, she also said something about women bringing more to, the table, life, society, than men in general. And for me, equality is always the goal. Equality is the goal, but Onalenna, it seems like she doesn't see women as equal to men. She sees women as superior to men. And honestly, you know what? That might not sound like such a controversial thing to say in our feminist society, but I do still not think that that's a healthy view to have. I still think the healthy route is always the middle path of equality, of everyone is equal, bringing equal things. And I like Onalenna. She is a great contestant. I love how she looks. She's absolutely stunning. It's just this thing that keeps popping up with her that I do not agree with, and that I do actually not think is a healthy stance at all.
And I believe that women are far more capable and should never even be compared to men, because what we bring to the table is far more of what they can give.
After this came the saddest thing I ever saw. It was a dance challenge, and obviously my heart broke for Mia. She's deaf, for goodness sake. And she had to do a dance challenge, and she was talking about how she felt inadequate because she couldn't hear the music so well, and she was struggling to keep up with the dance. And she talked about how there was too much noise and everybody was being noisy, and so she struggled. And the way she described it, I can feel it myself, that feeling of anxiety and dread when you're in like an overstimulating situation and you're trying to focus on something but everything is just coming at you at once. I wanted to give her the biggest hug. This woman is stealing my heart every single time she's on camera. Guys, I love Mia. I want to protect Mia. I would do unspeakable things to protect this woman because she just pulled on my heartstrings. It was the saddest thing. If you haven't watched it, go watch it, because you can't not feel for her. I felt for her so much. So for the dance challenge, the Kota Queens won, but the challenge didn't really have any effect on the competition. I don't feel like it was like a challenge for merch, so there was that. Stressing my girl Mia out for some merch. So for the main challenge, which was an individual challenge, the girls had to create a commercial, obviously still sticking to the theme of proudly South African. So they could basically do whatever as long as it fits into this theme. And obviously, if you guys remember from the cooking challenge, the team who won actually got 2 extra takes. So everybody else only got 3 takes for their commercial, but the team who won got 2 extra takes. So they got 5 takes in total, which is a huge advantage. So obviously there was a little table of props and things that you could use, and Nolene came up to this table and so confidently announced that she wasn't gonna be using any props because of, she didn't want to commit cultural appropriation. And you know what? Fair enough. I understand this. This is obviously the wise choice to make. If the only props on the table were props from other cultures, there was a rugby ball. Rugby balls are culture neutral in South Africa. In fact, it might be the very emblem of South Africa at the moment, given our history with rugby right now. Holding a rugby ball would have quite nicely fitted into what she was saying in her little commercial. So I don't know, the fact that she went and talked about the fact that she wasn't going to be using any props due to cultural appropriation. Well, there's literally a rugby ball there. A rugby invented by whom? Is it perhaps someone who looks sort of like, I don't know, might be. Maybe she doesn't know. Maybe she thinks rugby was invented somewhere in KwaZulu-Natal or so. I don't know. I don't know what she was thinking announcing this with like a little short. I need to calm down. I need to calm down. But then again, Reinette came up confidently wearing a necklace, not from her culture. I know this because we share the same culture, and that irked me even more. So there was that. So we switched to Nompumelelo talking about how she was feeling a bit overwhelmed, perhaps, feeling pressure, having been in the top 5 of Miss South Africa before. And I can definitely understand this. Natasha also related to this. Natasha had quite a similar journey. And you know what? It's true that Miss South Africa has changed a lot from 2019 to now. The process of it all has changed so much. You know, COVID has changed everything for everybody. And then there's also crown chasers. Back in the day, you didn't even have to register online or anything. And so I think it's so interesting that she's coming back to basically a completely different set of criteria, different competition, where Natasha sort of had the same thing, where she competed in 2020, which was very different, and then she came back to crown chasers and all of that. So Makati was actually a guest judge for the day while the girls were doing their fireworks, which is like the little ramp competition that they had near the end of every episode. So the bottom 3 of the day ended up being Reinette, Nolene, and Kirsten. And Kirsten, I don't know, but the other 2 I do sort of agree after everything I had seen in the episode. And the top 3 were Taahira, Nompumelelo, and Mia. And I was especially stoked for Nompumelelo and Mia. Nompumelelo, of course, was also the overall winner for the day, so that's very exciting. And the bottom 3 actually had to answer rapid fire questions. For me, Kirsten has still a lot of potential. I don't want Kirsten to go home just yet. Nolene actually was the one who I thought deserved to go home after the rapid fire questions.
There is no such thing as color, as race.
I think just for sensitivity and cultural appropriation, I'm not gonna.
But at the end of the day, it was Reinette who was selected to go home. And you know what? As cold-hearted as I might seem at times, it's never fun to watch someone go home and to watch their dreams get crushed. And I did feel for Reinette as she was crying in the car on her way home, talking about how much she has improved. You know, it is sad, but she was never a top fave of mine. So I'm not exactly going to be crying myself to sleep tonight, although I do feel for her. I'm still happy with everyone who we have in the running to become the next Miss South Africa. So let me know what you guys think. I'd love to know. I feel like this episode of Crown Chasers went a little bit too fast. It was a little bit too all over the place, but perhaps that is because we do have a large number of contestants. 16 is quite a lot to have to go through, and we're gonna have to keep up and stay with this amount of contestants pretty much up until the end, because we're only going to be eliminating like 4, so we'll have to see. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you haven't already, please subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.